Hey, welcome to another episode of, where are we? We are twisted, bent, and exhausted entrepreneurs. And
This is the problem you have when you do so many podcasts.
yeah, I guess it is.
Which
Trying
one
to
am I
find the right.
doing today?
Yeah, this is. I'm going to put it up just so I don't get confused that we are. Whoop. Wait a second. As it now these all have timers on them. I'm like, I don't want a timer on this. I want this to just show up. And this is the Twisted, Bent, and Exhausted Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm Jeff Harrison,
Yay.
along with
Leslie Spohr. That's me.
yeah, and we had a banner up there, and it really is. It's one of those things that we're recording this on the 4th of March, and I want to date that because of the fact that by the time you listen to this, or it goes live in a couple of weeks, everything is moving so fast. It's almost like you're waiting at the train station and you're supposed to get on and it is going at full speed. The doors are open, but you have to time it. That's what it feels like to me, Leslie. And so, we're talking about local business owners. Where do we go from here that everything is happening so fast? How are you experiencing this?
Yeah, but I'm experiencing it too because I'm on your AI wavelength, but you got to keep in mind when we do these podcasts, Jeffrey, that I called you by your whole name.
Wow. It's like my mom just scolded me. I'm in trouble now.
Your knowledge is so deep into this industry, this AI stuff, that you feel it more significantly than most people do. So I want to be careful that we don't overscare somebody or tell them things that they are not experiencing because they may not feel the credibility of what we're saying, right? So we've got to be a little bit careful with that because I know you're super sensitive to it. It is happening so fast, but I don't think the average person who's not really into it yet can feel that. Or maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
No, I think that's a really good point. And I have this vision because I'm a visual type of learner. Imagine there's this weather map and not everybody has access to it. And you live in the Midwest. And I have this weather map, or we have this weather map that can look offshore and said, hey, 1,000 miles offshore, moving at a really high rate of speed, is this massive technology tsunami. And it's going to sweep across the country. Well, I guess I would be guilty of not sounding the alarm if I didn't say something, right?
Well, I totally understand that. But,
yeah. And so I guess the biggest thing I want to say is I don't want to just, and you've told me this before, and I'm going to say something that you said, hey, don't come in and just tell me a problem. Come in with a problem and the solution. Because I think you said something like you're just leaving a turd. Don't let me to clean it up.
Yeah, just don't throw that on the table.
Yeah. So I with what we talk about in this is my goal is not to just say, hey, this is coming, but also to say, as we're doing here, where do we go from here as local business owners? Now, what I'm saying is, what we'll talk about is we'll work for all businesses, but because we speak to local business owners and entrepreneurs, this is more sensitive to that audience.
I don't speak to just local business owners.
Well, that's what our show is: tired, confused, worn out entrepreneurs. Yeah, I think entrepreneurs, they don't have to be just local business owners.
I work with people across the country, though. And those are local to their area. So if you mean that, then that's fine. If you're talking about just where we are, then I don't agree with you.
I left pickleball for this. I could have just stayed on. I had another great match coming up. It was the best 2 out of 3. It was 1-1. Here I am back in this. And yeah. All right. So now that we've circumcised that topic, let's go into, so we're talking about, hey, if you're a business owner, where do you go? Because as our banner said, it's like, by the time you hear about this, we'll already be a couple, 3 weeks into this. But it's one of those things we're talking about, things like AI agents. If you haven't heard of it, there's a product out there, used to be called Claudebot, but then Claude, who didn't create it, this was done by a freelancer in their garage. and it wasn't Bill Gates. He came up with this program. It was all free, it was open source, and he built this tool. It was an agent that could basically not just answer questions like we're used to, like a chatbot, but this agent, Leslie, actually will do the work. It will take over the computer. It will make reservations for you. It won't take out the garbage, but it'll answer your emails. You pretty much name it, and it will do it for you. And they're saying, we're going to go from this, which they said, if we look back into the past, after we're talking about this time frame of only 10 weeks from now, these things will seem like, I can't believe we were even using those because they've advanced so far. So when you're talking about that, it's like, well, okay, that's great. As a local business owner, how can I use something like that? Or how can we suggest you use something like that to help your business?
Well, the first thing I always recommend is look for repetitive tasks. Because if you've got something that it's a recurring, repetitive task you're doing, is that redundant? I think so. That you're doing all the time, maybe that's something that could be automated or delegated. And by delegation, I don't mean just to another human. I mean, it could be delegated to a voice agent or an AI, like answering the phone, right? Yep. If you have a business that requires constant phone monitoring and response, that can be automated. In fact, I know you have done that for people. Yeah. So you want to look for things in your business first and foremost of what can I automate, so that and I teach the same thing with the challenges I do for companies is that I want to take their all the different apps that they have and consolidate them down into one application, so that they're not A, paying for multiple apps, B, having to put the same data in multiple places, and C, to cut down their procedures and things, because they're going to have a way to track what I do in which place. And it gets quite cumbersome, especially, and it can limit your growth too. So if we are limited by the capacity of our ability to do something, and we're doing it repetitively, then we need to streamline so that those tasks are then automated or delegated in some way. So I think that's one of the places you want to start with this is, what can I automate?
Yeah, I would not disagree. And when somebody, and you've dealt with this, and we've talked about it many, many times in your consulting career, is you walk in and somebody says, yeah, Leslie, but that doesn't work in our industry. That doesn't work in my business. It doesn't work for me. And you know what? There might have been rare instances where they had a point, but for the most part, that's a dead issue anymore, because the tools now are so vast. And and here's the thing, now listen closely. If the tool doesn't exist, you can make it and you can customize it. Like, that's what you can do. You now have the tools to make the tools. It's almost like, there's a book that was written by Peter Diamandis, and it says, we are gods. And when I thought, boy, that's a pretty big statement. But then I read part of it. I'm like, oh my gosh, he's right. Because back in the Bible, when it said these are the miracles that were performed, we're doing it every day and we just take it for granted. Yeah. And I think sometimes, Leslie, we forget, or maybe we don't even, let's say we're ignorant of the fact. I mean, I don't mean in a negative way. We just haven't been exposed to it. So we don't even know this exists. I'll give you an example. Yesterday, I got a call from somebody who is, I think he's pretty savvy and a business owner. And he called me, he says, hey, I'm doing some things for a nonprofit that I've formulated, and I have something in April I want to promote. And I was wondering if there's a way to use AI to do that. Well, that's like swinging the door open for me.
Oh, wait, you're digital marketing. I think so.
Yeah. But I asked a few questions, and I said, here's a tool that would work for you really well. And I gave him the name of the tool, and I said, here's what you can do. I said, you can give it all the stuff, because he's already done the graphics and all that kind of stuff, but he doesn't know how to put it out there. And I said, you can load all that stuff in there, and then you have your own mini LLM. Like it'll only respond from the content you have, but it'll have the bigger brain to say, okay, now based on what you've given me, here's what I would do. And I walked them through it. I'm going to make a little video for them today to show them how to do this, because again, it's a nonprofit. They're trying to do this on a shoestring, but I want to help them. Well, here's the thing. He had no idea these tools exist. I gave him name of 3 tools. I use them every day. He had no idea they existed. I've had them for now 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, but see, that's the point I'm making, is the average person out there, unless they're working in the AI environment, which you do, unless they're doing that, they are not aware yet. I've been doing an informal survey with my clients all across the country, and I say, do you know about this? Do you know about that? And they don't. I mean, probably the most in-depth thing they know is ChatGPT, and even in that case, they don't know really how powerful it actually is, and how they can use it. Even, I've been writing my books lately, and I have found things I didn't realize I could do to make things easier and more the way I want them, right? Because if you're not careful with any of these AI tools, it's going to give you something, but it may not be exactly what you need unless you know how to use them. So I don't think people are nearly as advanced in their awareness as we are because of what you do, right? You and I talk about this all the time, so I'm well aware of what's going on, but most people are not.
Well, yeah, again, there's that situation where I'm like, if I know there's a 40-year flood coming and I'm the only one building the ark and I keep telling people, they think I'm crazy.
Right.
Until the rain starts, and on day 22, when they're standing on top of their roof and I'm in my ark smiling with animals ready to go, they're finally thinking, oh crap, maybe I should have listened. And I'm not saying I'm the Messiah. I'm not. I'm not saying it. I'm not saying it. I'm just saying I'm not the only one saying this, right? It is now being more widely spoken about, of like, when we hear major companies say, hey, you know what? This particular industry now will not exist a year from now with humans doing the work. And I am not an advocate of saying, I want you to let me install AI, or I want you to install AI just to wipe out jobs. I think this is a side-by-side piece, because here's the thing. AI can't do everything. And what I mean by that is, and I know you're going to find this funny, is there are currently AI-run businesses that are hiring, and we call them meat puppets. That's us.
Meat puppets.
Humans, meat puppets. Because they can't literally, deliver something, but they do all the heavy lifting. And now the people they hire, humans, will do the tasks. So we thought it was going to be the other way around. Like it was going to really take on the easy stuff. It's actually doing the hard stuff, and then saying, okay, but I can't quite get this across the finish line. I need to hire a Jeff. I need to hire a Leslie to take it down the line. So I think there's going to be a neat synergy if we'll be open-minded enough and say, this is how I fit into this economy, this future economy that's happening today.
Yeah, I think that a lot of the projections are a bit overblown. What's going to happen is...
give me an example of when you think it's overblown.
What I'm saying is that it's going to take over the world, or it is going to eliminate types of jobs. But that's been happening my entire life. I've seen lots and lots of businesses come and go from the 1900s to I wasn't around.
You're not that old.
No. But what I mean is,
she's got a really good plastic surgeon.
I wasn't around when they had switchboard operators, okay? But I do remember party lines, okay? So barely, but I remember party lines. So when you think about it, we haven't had switchboard operators in forever, right? We have fiber optics today. We don't need a switchboard operator. Those things go away. Different businesses will evolve. More things will be done through automation, robotics, than ever before, but it's been coming for a long time. And so it's a matter of like fast food restaurants. They are robotics. They're implementing robotics for lots of things, but they still have people working there. Do they have, do you have so many people you're bumping into each other and burning yourself on the fry basket? No. But somebody still has to scoop up the fries, and maybe they'll automate that too. But
Flippy
there's
does
some
that.
amount of, huh?
Flippy
What?
does that.
Flippy,
Flippy
yeah,
from
yeah.
Miso Robotics actually does that.
I've heard of that. But what I'm saying
Yeah.
is that there will be positions that need to be managed. And I can see more and more robotics getting in there. But basically what you see when you go into some of the, and I don't ever hardly go there. So when I do go, I see a vast change in how things are. For example, they want kiosks to take all the orders when it used to be a person that said, "Hi, how may I help you? Do you want fries with that?" But we've gotten so used to some of that automation that when the screen asks us that question, we know already. We're already conditioned on how to respond to that.
Well, think about what
So
other industry has had that for now quite a few years, and now we would rather go to the kiosk instead of to the counter. Can you think of that? It kind of
air,
fly.
the
Yes.
airplanes, yeah, airports have that. They're full of kiosks now where you can print your tickets for your luggage tags. You can print your boarding passes. You can change your seats. I mean,
And
you
you
can do
you
all kinds of
travel
things.
you travel more than I do. Typically, I just have to fly commercial, but you fly first class. It's probably a different experience. But do you see more and more people like that is not like, oh, I'm not going to go to that line. I'm going to go to this line where there's a human. Do you
I do
see
that. I
you
do
go to
that.
the human?
I do
But
because
do you see people like shying away from using the machine because at the end of the day, the machine is as fast or faster than standing in the line and waiting?
no, I think most people have embraced that. The most shocking one for travel was the global entry and the ability to scan your passport. I
Yeah.
mean, getting through customs now is super easy compared to what it used to be.
Mm.
I personally choose the human over the kiosk because I like the personal interaction. I like to, if the customer service person truly is a customer service person. Sometimes they get a little cranky these days, but by and large, most of them are great, and I like going to a human being. That's not to say, when I traveled for a living, right? When I was on the road 50 plus weeks a year, um, the kiosks were a godsend because you could get through
Mm.
fast and get to your gate and do what you need to do. And so you didn't really have to you didn't have to stand in line necessarily. There's so many kiosks now. You don't even have to stand in line. Last time I was in an airport, I think there were something like 30 kiosks at
Wow.
one airline. I mean, it was
Wow.
crazy. And of course, that depends on the airline, the location of the airline of the airport, because depending on the traffic through a place like DFW or Chicago is a busier airport than say Ontario or our Ontario, not Canada's Ontario. So um, it's really a personal preference. Imagine there will always be human beings there, though. I can't imagine that they will just completely go to kiosks
Well, I
because
wonder.
some problems can't be solved by the kiosk.
Yeah, I wonder if it's that brings up that point where I love what I see when I go into the airport or I go to Costco or a big box store and they're running you through the self checkout, but there's always a human around in case there is an issue, and they'll come
Yeah.
over and swipe it and get it working right away. What that seems to give me is I have the convenience of doing that, the speed of doing that, but if there is a problem, I'm not looking around because this person is on point saying, hey, the reason I'm here is not to check everybody out, but to make sure their checkout experience is smooth. That's what I noticed the other day when I was in Costco. Besides the fact that it was a freaking zoo,
I know it
um,
was a zoo. I was there this week.
yeah, my wife sends me when we only have to have one or two items, not a lot. and so I'm a hunter. I get in there, get out. I'm the guy with no cart and two things in my hands waiting. But when I got there, I thought what was really cool is now they've upped their game even more. That service attendant is out there saying, "Oh, let me pre-check you in, so when you get up there and all you do is scan your card, it immediately rings it up and
They
you're
did
good
that
to
to me
go."
this week. Yeah.
I'm like, that's beautiful. So
But even more than that, before you don't lose your train of thought, even more than that, if you go to Sam's Club, okay, Sam's Club, you can have an app on your phone, and as you're buying things, as you're putting them in the cart, you can scan the barcode, and it automatically creates that thing for you. So when you go to check out and you scan your membership card, it's all done. You don't have to wait till somebody, because at Costco they
That's even
scanned it
better.
in my cart, right? So it's even faster if at Sam's Club with the way they do it. Now I seeing that Costco has added the scanners when you enter the store, and how they're doing it with the pre-checkout, where they're scanning your cart before you get up there. I imagine the next step will be to do it through the Costco app, but it's quite interesting. I mean, people just take it in stride. They don't realize, I don't think all the time, how much automation is going in. Yet there's still people there, and it's still busy, but it's just faster. It's smoother.
Yeah, there's that old story of, how do you cook a frog? And that's when you put them in cold water and slowly
Yeah.
heat it up, right? And next thing you know, it's cooked. And I think in not a negative way happens, because I see this experience as, okay, because there's some of that resistance my wife has said and her friends have said, like, oh, now they're charging us the same, but we've got to check out and bag our own groceries,
I'll let Wayne
right?
go.
Like, shouldn't there be a
Yeah.
discount for that? Because now I'm not paying for the checker because it's a machine. But I look at it like this. I'm like, but what that seems to have done is freed up those people from being, okay, I'm only working with Jeff. I can help a lot of other people and actually give better customer service. While now, if things are slow, it's on me. I have to take ownership on that. And I don't see it being a big deal. But again, I don't do a lot of that, but I've noticed it in many of the areas we're talking about, Leslie, is it seems like it's not in a thing to say, oh, we can now get rid of 7 employees because we've got 7 automatic checkouts. It's saying we're adding these, and now these people can actually provide higher customer service, which is what I'm talking about here, is H2H. That's human to human relationship. Like, we can really take care of it. I've noticed it in, I'll give one specific store, Home Depot. Home Depot used to be, for me, I would go in there and I'd yell, anybody here? Like, nobody's working. I couldn't find anybody. Now they've gone to I'd say in the last year, they've gone to the self-checkouts. And now it seems like there's people all over there to help you. It's such a different positive experience, because I'd really X'd off going to Home Depot. I had to go there this last weekend because a friend, he's kind of pro level member there. So he was buying some things, and the experience was so much better because of that reason. So I think if we have that mentality of saying, how can we add the technology but increase our personal relationship?
But see, I look at it a little bit differently. I look at it from the business perspective.
Shocking.
Yeah, sorry. If we 100% agreed, there would be no point to the podcast. I mean, come on.
I'm the twisted and bent one here. That's it.
I'm the exhausted one. But from a business perspective, because this is one of the things I teach, right? From a business perspective, the faster the throughput, the higher the profit margin. So use the Costco example, the faster they get people to check out, the more people can check out in a given day, the more money they make, right? With the same or fewer people. The people that were manning the checkouts, say, which, by the way, when I was there the other day, I think all the checkouts were open and it was packed. But if they don't need them on the checkout, they can be restocking shelves and getting things cleaned up and making sure that everything's where it's supposed to be, so that the shopping experience is better for those of us who are there. I use quite often the example of a drive-through at a fast food restaurant. For a long time, we would see counters in the windows when we pulled up, of the seconds that the car is sitting there waiting to pay and get out, right? Because the faster you get those cars through drive-through, the more money that restaurant can make. And if they're sitting there for 2 or 3 minutes, you're losing money every second that goes by. So when I see them automate these processes and increase the throughput of client or of buyers, regardless of the industry, whether that's the airline industry or the grocery warehouse or the fast food restaurant, or even claims departments for insurance companies. The faster you can process a claim, the more claims you can process. And so, people that complain about waiting forever to get insurance resolved will see an improvement because they'll be able to do it faster. So I'm looking at it from a business perspective more than a consumer perspective. Yeah, it's convenient for us, and yeah, we notice it. But from a business perspective, there is absolutely a reason behind why they're doing it.
Yeah, totally. I agree. Hey, before we get off this H2H relationship part, I think, the idea of I think, because the point is, where do we go from here? And I think if you can put yourself into a situation where you're leveraging technology like Leslie and I are speaking about here today, but it doesn't take you further away from your client or your customer, it actually gets you more in front of them so you can be more for them. I'll give you a perfect example. We have voice agents that we build for clients, and one of our target markets are primary care physicians or the medical field. And the reason is because so many incoming calls. When's my appointment? Let me make an appointment. Can I change my appointment? Can I get this, the refill for this done? All of these things can be handled by a properly educated and trained artificial agent. Now, here's the interesting part about this. Instead of hiring more people because you have more incoming calls, this same one agent can handle up to 50 to 100 calls simultaneously. And so all of a sudden now, if I walk up or Leslie walks up to the counter to check in for their appointment, where's their attention? On me. And all this stuff is happening in the background at a very high level. That agent is never short. It's always happy. It's 24/7. It doesn't make you wait. Like, okay, if we can say, okay, you want to answer everything on the second ring, you want to answer everything on the first ring, whatever it may be, and you have a specific greeting. It never not does that. And so I think by adding this, I agree with what you're saying. It's making the business more efficient, which my throughput is higher, so my revenue is higher. As long as we don't lose sight of, is it making us more money, but it's hurting our H2H relationships? I think that's where we might have to say, pause a second and say, wait a second, just because I'm doing this, now our customers are suffering. So I just want to leave that as a thought here. I'm sure you've got a thought on that before we move to this next piece.
Well, yeah, I automate as much of my businesses as I can, right? So for Executive Errands, the lifestyle management company went, and I think we might have talked about this in the past, but when I go through I have my own software for that, as you know, that I license out to other companies, and I go through it and I automate the time entry so that we can save 89% of the time it takes my employee to input their time. And that directly corresponds to the 89% more time that they can spend for the client facing side of it. Right? That's a good way to look at it, because that data entry is something we have to do every single day, every day. So to save time on that gives them more time to do other things. And that's really the whole purpose of automation, is to keep the human interface focused on the client or the customer, or something that furthers the business's goals, and not on dumb, mundane, repetitive tasks. I just hate the waste of redundant tasks, especially when it's data entry. It drives me nuts. Don't like it.
Well, let's talk about this next piece, because I think this is the one that's probably going to be a bit of a curveball for a lot of people. And this is one of those things where we're moving into a time frame, Leslie, where when we make content to go to our customers, to attract our ideal customers, it's going to be going to Leslie's agent, who she has come aboard as an agent and said, hey, you're really kind of like my personal assistant. You can do all these things for me, which includes, hey, if I'm looking for a rent-a-car in Dallas, you are actually going out and communicating with Avis Rent-A-Car agent. And what I mean by that is a virtual agent or a human agent. You're doing the work. So my point on that is, when we make content attract your ideal customer, I think we need to be aware that our ideal customer, not today, but in the not too distant future, is no longer going to be a human. It's going to be an agent for a human. And when that happens, they look at content differently.
You know, I was thinking while you were talking about that is back to video conferencing. So let's see, I've been in business now for myself 20 years. So 20 years ago, or 25 years ago, when I was traveling all the time, we would try to video conference, but it was horrible. I mean, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Constantly, right? And can you see me? I can't tell if you can see me. You know, it was horrible. And today, I mean, look at what we're doing this podcast the same way. We're through a video conferencing application, and the quality is so good now. So when you talk about what were you just talking about? I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. It was correlated.
Making content for a client is now an agent.
Yes. So right now, today, even though the technology exists to do it the way you do it, okay, I still run into these voice agent loops where the automated, you can't get a human, and the automated system just keeps taking you back to the beginning and saying, well, press this, press this, press this, and then all of a sudden you're back at the beginning again. And so it drives you crazy. I mean, I had that happen just this week, maybe last week, where I was trying to reach an HOA manager, and they have a voice agent that takes the calls, and it has all the press here to redirect your call, but not the one I was trying to get to. And at no point did it say, okay, for an operator or a human being, press 0. Never said that. So it just kept taking me back to the beginning, and I could not reach anybody. So I think, and the point I'm trying to make is that, as you talked about how 10 weeks from now, we're going to look back and say, oh my gosh, I couldn't believe how archaic what we had was. Or like I look back 25 years ago, even actually only 5 years, because it really improved over COVID, where we had to have video conferencing, and saw how archaic video conferencing used to be and how great it is today. That I think we're going to see that with voice agents too. The days of the continuous loop of I can't get out of this thing is going to improve to the point where you don't even know you're talking to an automated response. It's going to be, I mean, I've heard your agents, and they sound like any other human being, and the responses are very, very good. They're almost intuitive because they've been trained.
They are. And I was going to say, what you described there that's almost like a dial-up versus fiber optic is where we're at even now. Yeah. Like that particular agent is, I'm going to call it generation 1.0. And what we have now is, like you said, I can have a conversation, and it's not these rote responses. And if it doesn't fit those rote responses, it you can almost smell the smoke through the phone. It's really a conversation because it has this well of knowledge. And the other thing that's really cool about the agents, the way they're advancing, is, let's say, for instance, every phone call is recorded, so it's transcribed. So we can look at every transcription and we can say, oh, wait a minute, here was a challenge in that. So now we'll go back and say, well, let's add this to the training module. So if it ever happens again, it will be handled in this way. So, a lot of times, and we've heard this, it's called training, model training. And, they use this as an example. Let's say, for instance, Elon Musk is training cars to be full self-driving. Well, the way he's doing it, he's gathering the data from me and my wife and everybody else who has a Tesla. He's gathering that data. We approve that he can collect that stuff. Well, we're training it to be superior as drivers. Well, we can do exactly the same thing with now we say, okay, let's look at a day's worth of calls. Let's look at the conversations. Were we happy with the outcome? Well, we were with 9 out of 10, but this one, what would we say? We just go back in there and train it. And now it's better from that point on. It won't slip backwards, which is really cool.
Yeah.
I hate to say this, but our human employees, including myself, we might screw up again. We might say the wrong thing. The other thing that I think is really cool, it's evolving, and stop me if this has never happened to you. I call in and the voice agent says, please confirm you are who you are. Please add your account number in there. Oh, let me transfer it to the right person. So now it transfers to a real person. And now the person does what? What is your name? Let me have your account number. Yeah. That is gone, because what happens now is you could have that one agent that handles all of that, has that breadth of knowledge, or it says, okay, well, we have like the scheduling nurse. So if it's, oh, you need to speak to Leslie, she's a scheduling nurse. When it goes over to Leslie, it knows exactly who you are and it knows what's going on in the conversation. So there's no repeating. It'll say, oh, hi, Jeff. Thanks let's set you up a schedule. And it'll put it together. And then it will call me the day after or the day before and confirm that I'm going to make it. It just is getting better and better by leaps and bounds.
American Airlines already does that. I mean, they have been doing that for quite a few years. The first time it happened, I was quite surprised. I called in and the voice agent said, oh, hello, Leslie. I have your frequent flyer number as blah, blah, blah. And has anything changed on your email address? Nope, it's the same. Okay, great. How can I help you today? And I mean, it already knew who I was just based on the phone number of me calling in.
And did you like that?
Well, I do now. The first time it happened, I was a bit disturbed. I was like, oh, God. Because, one of the things that's kind of funny is that I don't believe there's any such thing as privacy anymore. No. Because when they started outsourcing the Social Security admin stuff to overseas, I was like, okay, we're done with privacy. Because we outsource so much of our the call centers to other parts of the world. And, you've got to trust that those people take care of your information. But even then, there are bad actors out there that are going to get to your information. I mean, my LifeLock constantly says, not constantly, but quite often says, hey, your passwords were caught up in a bad deal. And so the first time that happened, I kind of ignored it until all of my accounts started getting hacked. And then I had to go in and change I don't have a single password anymore for everything like I used to. Everything is different because of that. But the first time that American Airlines recognized me by my phone number, I was a little disconcerted. But now I know that it's really convenient because I don't have to re-explain. When the lady finally gets on the phone, or the gentleman, about my account to talk to me about reservations or frequent flyer miles or whatever, they already have it all in front of them. They don't have to say, wait a minute while I look this up. Yeah, it's just one compared to somebody else I called recently, and I forget who I was I don't remember if it was Airbnb or somebody I was trying to reconcile. I had to go through 4 different people with the same conversation 4 different times. And I started to get really, really irritable. You know me, I never get irritable.
I can't imagine you getting irritable.
I know, really, right? And so I was getting really annoyed. I said, this is the 4th time. Now, I'm very careful to always say to someone on the phone, I know this is not you, but your process sucks big time, your company's process. Because it's not the individual that you're talking to. You're irritated with the process. And because I teach process, I can't hardly stand it.
Well, here's the wild part about that scenario is I might initially be answered by somebody in Bangladesh, and then they transfer to the next person who's in Malaysia, who then is in the Philippines, and then is in Florida, or India. And that's just the way it works because these people are freelancers. They can work from anywhere in the world. charged to, so it transfers that phone number. And there is no continuity. Like you said, the systems don't fit there. But here's a cool thing. That's the worst it was ever going to get. It was going to continue to evolve. And now we're talking about having a conversation with somebody on the phone or something on the phone synthetically, and we don't even know that it is an AI agent.
That's
and
true.
I
And
think
you
that
noticed, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I think that's just going to continue to improve. And like you said, the ones we use, it feels like they're intuitive, and
They
that's where
do.
they're getting to. Yeah.
They do. And I noticed too that these agents, you can understand them. In the old days, when you got somebody in Bangladesh, they were very difficult. Their name was Tina or Jeff or something that we would recognize as not Bangladesh. But the accent was always so heavy that you couldn't always understand them. I have had to ask for a supervisor in a couple of cases over the years, not recently, to say, I need somebody I can understand on the phone. I haven't run into that in years. I mean, I don't know whether because the world has gone so global that these freelancers look at Faisal.
Yeah.
We work with him and he speaks perfectly good English. Um, I feel bad that we have to make them speak perfectly good English, but that's part of their business as freelancers is that they have to communicate with the people who hire them.
Here's
So
a
it's interesting to me.
yeah. Here's another little trick of the voice agent. Let's say, for instance, I'm that voice agent, AI voice agent, and you call in and you speak Spanish. I can immediately start speaking Spanish fluently to you.
I know. Yeah, I've seen you do that.
Yeah. Or, it's like whatever language, like there's 100 and I think 181 different languages that if you started speaking that language, it would immediately pick up and speak your language. So there's none of this where it's like, I didn't understand that person or they didn't speak my language. And especially when we live here in the Coachella Valley, and we have a diverse, economy of many Hispanics and English speaking people. And so sometimes it's easier for them to speak that native tongue. Well, I may not understand that, but our voice agents now have that ability. So it's kind of cool.
You know, it's,
Before,
don't leave me yet. Well, what's interesting
okay.
is that um, you were talking about that they could that even though you reach a voice agent, they do have the ability they have the ability to get you to a human, right? And
Mhm.
so
Yep.
what's interesting to me is that when you were talking, it made me think about the X-ray technician. They can, because the vast amount of questions that come into the doctor's office or come into American Airlines or come into a business are easily answered questions. What are your hours? Where are you guys located? What kind of clients do you service? What do you offer? I mean, there's super easy questions to answer that a voice agent can take care of. But there will always be situations that require a human to get into it because it isn't a straight answer, which means that the voice agent can handle the heavy lifting of it, and the humans get to handle the more what takes more finesse. And we talked about that with X-ray technicians, right? Probably 99% of X-rays when they get read are good, especially if you're scanning for dark spots or tumors or things like that. A huge portion of those are clean X-rays. But the X-ray the reader, the diagnostician has to go through every single one to determine if it's good or it isn't. Where if you give parameters to an AI agent and say, unless you see all of this means good and this means set aside and flag it, what does that mean? That means the preponderance of X-rays can be processed very, very quickly. And the outliers, the ones that have a potential issue, then can be funneled through the diagnostician who can then utilize his education and expertise to interpret what he's seeing.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
there may come a day where the AI can also interpret those x-rays, the bad x-rays. But for now, at least, the ability to weed out the ones that pose a problem versus ones that are just clean is a huge advantage, I think, to not only the cost of x-rays and processing and all of that, which again, from a business perspective, you're cutting the cost down, which is a benefit to the consumer, but it's also allowing a more focused analysis so that things don't get overlooked as easily. Or not to say that any diagnostician would overlook something, but when you know how exhausted doctors get, the
Yeah.
amount of stuff that they have to go through every day. If there was a way to cut that volume down so they could focus on what could really be bad. It's like anything, when you identify the parameters and you set what are the outliers, and then you look at the outliers, management by exception. We're always back to my management by exception. I don't need to look at all of them. I need to look at the
Right.
few that are risky. And that's what's
Absolutely.
happening, I think, across all of AI and voice agents, is that we're trying to automate the usual and just focus on the exceptions. That's what I
Well,
think.
I think that's exactly right, and that's what you said is like, hey, there's a vast percentage of every question that every business receives that can be automated, that can be trained in a voice agent. And when there's that outlier that can't be, it's like you can make it say, Leslie, that's a great point. I'm going to get you with one of our agents, our live agents. Hold on one moment, and then they'll just direct it to you. There are no more loops really. If you run into those are old fashioned.
That's
Again,
what I'm
those are
saying.
dial
Yeah.
up. Those are
Yeah.
dial up. But
Good
before we
dial-up.
go, yeah, before we go on, I want to leave you with some very specific things when it talks about content for AI, because here's the thing: AI search agents can only see certain things, or they want to see certain things. Like they want to see structured data. What does that mean? That means that it has a headline and it's H1 and H2 and it has meta tags. In other words, things that somebody says, well, yeah, we do that in SEO. Yes, and you don't. And so what happens is what it's almost like is like if you're you're what's his name, you've got a cloak on you and nobody can see you. You've got this great bit of information, but you've cloaked your document. So it's important to have structured data. It's also to have what they call FAQ schemas, video schemas, so that, in other words, it highlights that, oh, this is something you should see as an AI and SEO. What I'm talking about also helps your SEO. But we're talking about in the future, your agents are going to look for that because they'll use a different set of parameters to decide, is this the type of information that I want to feed back to my human to make a decision? And if you don't have that, then it'll not be cited or looked at. And that's another word I want you to pay attention to. The word is cited, meaning I'm not going to cite you as a resource unless you have proven you have these bits of information. Whereas in the old days, or SEO only, it's keyword and keyword phrase driven. We need to not disregard that, but we need to start adding this citing process into our content. So as an example, let's say, for instance, I live and work in La Quinta, California, but I also service Rancho Mirage. Well, if I'm not getting business if I'm getting business from there, but it's not bringing me up in the search for AI, I have to give it valid proof that I really work there. How would I do that? Well, I could have local pages that say Rancho Mirage on it, and it have information about that. It has my vehicle parked in front of a very obvious location in Rancho Mirage. I have to have testimonials on that page from Rancho Mirage people. And you can just any city. So these are called cite. I'm being cited because, oh, they are an expert in this, they are knowledgeable, and they work in that area. So it's going to be different. Whereas like Google Business Profile says, well, if my business is in La Quinta, I'm going to give you a certain radius, and the chances of you showing up in these other cities, because it's really designed for local businesses, Leslie, I'm not going to show up there very easily. Yes, we can do some of the same things, but when it comes to AI and your AI agents, you better have it in there. And the final thing is that I'm going to point out, and there's a lot of things, but these are the three key things, is you better put your pricing in there.
That's funny. I had a meeting yesterday where somebody does not have their pricing on their website, and I thought, well, that's interesting.
All that is, Leslie, it's just throwing up another resistance, because it's like, if you're thinking about buying something, what's one of those questions you have in your mind? Well, how much does this cost? And if I go to your website and there's it's always call for a number, call for a price, and it's resistance. I'm going to go someplace else. When I go to Leslie's website and it says, this is exactly what is, here's price, I can now make a decision. So these are things your AI agent is going to do before they go back and say, no offense, our meat puppet, and tell them, hey, this is.
I'm going to get a t-shirt that says meat puppet on it. We should do that.
Yeah, we should. And so these are things that commonly are not being done for local businesses or entrepreneurs. And I want to point something out. We say, hey, pick up the low-hanging fruit. Lean close and get this in your brain. This fruit is on the ground. You just have to bend over and pick it up. You have to do these 2 or 3 things.
Well, you're talking higher than a lot of people understand already, which I know you can't help yourself, but
this is basic stuff.
For those of you who may not quite understand what Jeff is talking about, he's basically talking about the difference between search engine optimization, which is the way advertising marketing has been for decades at this point, where you put in, they call them meta tags, so just words, keywords that the search engines find, and then it will direct people to your information, versus AI, which requires answer engine optimization and specific information that shows that you're credible. So it's more of an answer, and you can see that when you go into any browser and put in some search criteria, it's going to come back with an answer for you instead of a paid site. So people who are still paying for SEO or tag searches, that's still going to be valuable, but it's going to become less valuable over time as these answers become more important, as more people use them. So the bottom line is, those of us who embrace the answer engine optimization and the citing that Jeff talks about, the credibility links that are needed for the AI bots to find us, are going to be ahead of the curve when it comes to marketing and advertising, because mostly digital marketing and social media, because we already recognize that that the answer bots need to find us, and most people don't yet. They're still paying per click. They're still paying for tag optimization, SEO type things, and it's going to become less and less as we go along. But already AI is out there. So if your site, if your website, if your social media, if all your digital content is not already formatted for AI, you're going to fall behind the curve. So if you don't understand how to do it, you better engage somebody who does, because this is a big deal, right? Did I say that okay?
Yeah, you did. I really want to emphasize the fact that, what you have described is, it's a human to artificial intelligence experience. And what we're very quickly moving into, it will be an AI agent interacting with AI. And so me, like as an example, I built a couple of websites, one for you and other clients, that is really just artificial intelligence optimized. It doesn't care about pictures. It doesn't care about that. So it is really heavily text information based, but then it has to have certain formats. If you notice here, there's a little part above, like, okay, sales versus marketing, the difference every business owner must understand before hiring agency. Yeah, this is an article we did. And it has a little bit at the top. Well, what these are designed to do, if we think about content when we make it, we want to build hooks into their attention, because we know when they come to the page, they're looking for an answer. So we want to build a hook that says, oh, and we want to create what we call open loops, that it will cause them to, and our brains don't like open loops. We want answers. And so this is designed to help them do that. Well, these are points that your AI search agent will actually want to look at. And then I talked about headlines. Notice how this is bigger. And then it has information there. Everything is structurally set up, and bullet points. These are things that an AI agent and search engines both they love. So everything has this. So now each one of these, what sales actually does, why mixing sales and marketing leads to poor results. These are all searchable terms, but they're also high value titles. So then it has a recap. Notice local angle, why matters for Coachella Valley businesses. And then it talks about that clarity first. Oh gosh, I did mention it. Questions, frequently asked questions, right?
It also likes comparisons, right?
Absolutely.
AI likes to see comparisons.
And then you have a video at the bottom. So we're hitting all of these pieces, and then also related posts. I'm curious if you went and looked at your website and you finished a blog, does it just leave them hanging? Or is it like the old days of, like, you're in line at McDonald's and it says, would you like to supersize this? Well, that's what this is saying, is like, hey, if you like this article, here's some related posts that you probably want to get into. Well, if it means I can keep a client on, or a customer on the website, whether it's mine or anyone else's, longer, it means we're building that relationship we talked about the very first point. So I just want to share this, not to just to tell you I drink my own Kool-Aid. And this is exactly how we build every piece of content. And so that it shows up both for SEO, but more importantly, in the future, for AEO.
I'm looking at my blog that somebody manages. And it does not have additional content at the bottom, but does have leave a message.
Yeah. All right. So this last piece I want to talk about is, I think, really important, because we talked about, human to human relationships. We talked about making sure we take care, not ignore the future, and then also take care of your current customers. And Leslie, I think of you do this so well, is every week you have a newsletter that goes out, but also you're always creating content. And quite frankly, if you're not doing this already, folks, we're in the creator economy. It's not the consumption economy. You need to be creating, and the tools are endless to help you do that. Leslie is a master. She's a maestro at creating content. But I love how you do this. How long have you been sending emails on a consistent basis to your clients?
20 years.
20 years. Yep. And have you ever gotten a referral because of your emails?
Oh yeah, all the time. People love my newsletters and stuff.
And in your newsletters, is that creating a relationship digitally with your audience?
It is, because I talk about, it's almost like a blog, and then I talk about my own personal stuff and stories and things that are work related and things that are not work related. And, it's just a conversation that I like to have with my clients about what's going on. Some of it's even just what's going on in my life right now. Because, that old adage, people do business with people they know and like, that's correct, and people want to know who you are as a business owner, and what your ethics are like, and what your principles are like. And they want to know, they really want to know who you are. And because everything's about relationship building. I just did a quick presentation in BNI this week about building relationships, and how even when you're networking and you're attending a lot of different functions, you have to still build relationships with people. And that means taking things offline out of the networking event to actually build those. As far as my stuff is concerned, I try to keep a really good contact with my clients, and I have people who read my newsletter and have for 20 years that I run into people. In fact, I run into people a lot people I don't even realize are on my list that are like, oh my God, I read your newsletter. It's so much fun, blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, I've been doing it a long time.
On another piece of this is, and we talked about this last week, you and I, do you have a known customer or is it an invisible customer? And I won't get into that, but right now, if you have a database of people, they are known customers. And by that means, like, let's say, for instance, how many, you got a couple thousand names on your database?
Right.
Yeah. So if you, as an example, you said, hey, you know what? Every month I'm going to send 500 real pieces of mail to my customers. When's the last time you got a personal piece of mail that had your name on it? Maybe it's a fun postcard because you're good at doing those kind of things. A fun postcard that just has a great tip on them, and it shows up in the mail. Yes, the mailbox at the end of the driveway, not at the end of your nose on your computer. That could be very defining, that they don't forget that, right? It's almost like if I showed up at your house, I knocked on your door, and then you open the door and there's a bouquet of flowers sitting in front of your door, and you don't look around, but you read the card and it's from Jeff. You're like, oh my gosh, that was so cool. Well, we have that opportunity, I think, of taking care of our customers to do unique things like that. Like for me, I do a tremendous amount of education early in the morning. And as I'm reading this broad information, I will see something I'm thinking, oh, this is something that, this client would benefit from, or this client would benefit from. And I'll send little notes out all the time. I might send out 8 or 10 emails before 6 o'clock in the morning because I feel like, oh, this would benefit them. Or I wonder if they knew about this. And whether they respond back or not is not the point. The point is, I did something out of the ordinary to do things like that. What are your thoughts on doing something to take care of your current customers?
Well, I can tell you that when I get them, and some of my consulting clients do them, people that either my licensees for the databases or people I do coaching with, whichever. Sometimes they will send a personal note either at the holidays or just randomly, thank you for this session we had, or something like that. And I'm always surprised, and I almost always keep them.
Yeah.
Because they inspire me to want to do something similar. So far, it hasn't. Doing it manually has not come down on my radar. I'm not on my radar. It's lower on my priority list and other things as I've been writing these books and stuff. But there's something in this day and age, this digital day and age, there's something surprising and pleasing about getting a handwritten note. And I'm not talking about one that looks like it's handwritten, but commercially produced or an auto pen. I'm talking about, that was a joke.
I didn't want to peel that one back. I was like, I'm not touching that one. I've got mitts on. I'm not touching it. It's too hot.
Too soon?
Yeah, too soon.
But you know what I'm talking about. What you can get, like we can order Christmas cards or holiday cards that have a handwritten note in it and signed by your name, but it's a commercially produced one. It's not actually pen and ink. And in fact, if somebody come up with pen and ink that did that automatically, that'd be great. Yeah. I'm sure that's out there somewhere. So, I think that there's value in that for sure. And it's been a while since I've tried to do that, but it's on my list. I want to do that with my clients, especially. Thank them, especially the ones I've got clients I've had for all 20 years. Mm-hmm. Or most of my clients have been with me over 10 years. So I really want to acknowledge them and say something nice, because that support is priceless.
I wanted to share something, just because if you were a kid and you were ever going to get in trouble, what'd you always do? You invited a friend over for dinner because you're hoping your parents would forget. Well, I just want to share something. Leslie mentioned on her blogs, which, yes, Swing Point Media does. Here's her blog. And if you notice down at the bottom, you might also like, and here's a whole bunch of these on there. So
that's again, the one I picked.
And it signed up for newsletter. So I just want to point that out, is, we make sure to put that in there, and also all the tags, how they can be found. it's all there. So yeah, I just want to. This is now okay. We've documented. I can pull you off there now. Okay, good, good.
Oh my gosh.
We didn't abuse her, and so anyway, so let's put a bow on this today. So we've talked about, hey, where do we go from here with all this technology? I think the key thing is, you said early on is, and again, we're just recapping, is find the redundancies in your business, and if you can use technology to stop that and make it more efficient, so you're not having to do the same thing over and over again, do that. If you don't know if technology even exists, find out. Ask somebody like Leslie, ask somebody like me, hey, this is what I'm doing. Is there possible, can I possibly automate this? So that would be a good thing. The other one is H to H relationships. You nailed it. I think when you talked about it, it's like, there's nothing more important than that human to human relationship, because I think we are in a trust economy. We don't know. I mean, I don't know about you, Leslie, but I get so many spam emails and spam phone calls every day. It's like, is this a real message from a Nigerian person who's wanting to give me $25 million? Okay, that's an extreme. No, it's not. It's not.
But they're writing them now like they've already talked to you.
Yeah.
If you recall our last conversation, we decided to leave it, and I'm like, did I talk to this person? Because I don't know.
Yeah.
And then I'm getting ones that are being sent to my accounts payable department that says, Leslie Spohr approved this, pay this invoice. And I wonder when I see that, how many people actually pay those, because they're not legitimate. But, that's a bad actor use of AI. I mean, it's easy to do. And, the sophistication of spam emails and hoaxes gets better and better every day. So we need to be vigilant. And that's another thing I wanted to bring up in this topic, is that you really can't trust anything you see anymore. We're already there, reviews, testimonials, the social media posts. Are they AI generated, or are they people generated? Are they legitimate things, or are they not? I've already seen the government's getting upset about images that are created purporting to represent specific things in government that are not true, because they're AI generated. And so it's going to be even easier to sway public opinion and personal opinion on different topics because of the amount of technology that's available. And we need to be aware of it and
Absolutely.
be careful. Don't click on things, make sure you know who something comes from. Double check the email address, because it may look like it's coming from your bank or your PayPal or whatever, and it's not. In fact, when I see something that comes to me like that and it looks legitimate, I actually go and log into my app. I don't just go through the email, because you can't trust it. So the trust economy is extremely important, which is why, I'm going to segue into something I just did, is I just launched a new network for lifestyle management companies called conciergeworks.net, which is in the process of becoming a network where we can pull together legitimate businesses, trusted businesses, those that are insured, so that we can strengthen our industry and make sure that we don't fall prey to unscrupulous people. We really want to make sure that we have a national network of companies like ours, so that we can refer to them and collaborate with them with trust and knowing that they're a good company. So, because we're getting our industry, lifestyle management, is exploding. I think it's second only to pickleball. I think pickleball might be a little bit faster than we are, but it is really, really exploding across all of the country. And so we need to make sure we can trust the companies that are out there. And this is my attempt to make sure that happens.
Yep. Good stuff. And the last, we talk about make sure you make content for your AI agents and customer agents versus humans. and then also taking care of your customers. I think that's really important. Now, before we leave, I do want to give you just a moment, because not many people can say that they are an author. And what I mean by that is they've written and published a book, and you did it kind of in record time. Um, so I want you to take a second, and again, we're way over time, so please don't get too windy. And I'm going to give you the floor and just talk about this. And if you feel the hook, it's because you've gone too long. But I want you to share a little bit about your book, and
The current
who is
one?
it for? Yeah, the one you just
This one?
did. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So a few weeks ago in our podcast, Jeff said to me, "You should write the 12 Steps to Freedom about, how to work on your business and not in it." And then a couple of days later, I had a guidebook written. It's an easy read. And this is a companion piece to my 5 Days to Freedom challenge that I do. It's a free one-on-one business assessment I do for companies. And so it was published on Amazon. I'm really, really proud of it, 12 Steps to Freedom. And it says right on there how to build a business that doesn't depend on you. And then in production right now is my full-scale business book coming out called Freedom by Design. So I have this whole freedom series for business owners, because a lot of people don't know what they don't know. And because as our industry in particular grows and gets more people in it, I want to help those companies be successful. So on Amazon, 12 Steps to Freedom, the How to Build a Business That Doesn't Depend on You by me, Leslie Spohr, and check it out. I would love to see if you like it.
Fantastic. Make sure you get a hold of that. But I just want to say thank you for joining us again for another episode of the Twisted, Bent, and Exhausted Entrepreneur Podcast. If you like this, please make sure to give it 5 stars or the rating wherever you're watching. It's available on Spotify or on YouTube on Leslie's channel and my channel by the same name, and you can check that out. We'd really appreciate it. And we put a new episode out every Thursday at 12:01 a.m. So if you
12:01
like to be,
a.m.
yes, 12:01 a.m. So if you like to be on the cutting edge, you can log in at 12:01 a.m. and know what to talk about in that morning meeting on Thursday morning. So Leslie, as always, it's been a treat. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Everybody, thanks for joining us. I'll see you again next time on the Twisted, Bent, and Exhausted Entrepreneur Podcast.
Bye-bye.